Good morning. Good morning. It is Friday. We are here doing another live stream for Coffee and Dev. I'm your host, Corey Darby. We're on, I believe, episode 9. Today's talk is going to be, before we jump into it, I hope you have your coffee. I have mine. I actually haven't drank any yet, so let's just get some going. It's going to be a very interesting Coffee and Dev. I'm still kind of waking up, to be honest. I've been up for an hour or so, but just haven't had my coffee. Didn't have exactly what I wanted done for this. I don't know if you play Factorio, but I got conned into playing Factorio last night, and that was the time I was supposed to really do the slides. So we'll see how this goes. Uh, Today's talk is marketing your work. As I said, episode 9. And I think we're getting into kind of a trend of not preparation for interviews or leaving your job. Just, I don't think enough people really talk about this style vlog, I guess you could call it, this style of development. Normally, a lot of the stuff I see is like, here's hands on how to use Kubernetes, here's hands on how to use Docker, here's a quick tutorial on, Webpack or whatever. And I do want to include those, but Coffee and Dev is more about you as an individual, as a developer, more your skills, more the soft skill side stuff, the behavioral stuff, the general improvement. And marketing your work is something that I think we brush off as developers. I used to myself until I really started to realize the power of it. So, what does it mean to market your work, right? And if you're purely just a technical kind of dev, you're sitting there thinking, this means putting out tons of pull requests, getting my work out there on the technical level. And there's truth to that, but there was so much more behind the scenes. And I definitely do see intermediate developers struggle with this, trying to get over to more like a senior kind of level. Is you're going to start shifting from just the ability to write the code and the technical aspects of your code and more of a leadership stance. I think it's a growth hack for your career to start this earlier. And I think it will accelerate your progression in your career much faster. So, marketing your work, not the technical code stuff, visibility and getting recognition for your work. So, why you should market your work? Okay. So, I think you should market your work because not just because of the promotion or whatnot, but it helps to communicate your ideas within the company. Helps getting visibility on what you want to change in the org. It gives you a voice. If you recall, we did another presentation on becoming a decision maker, and some of this was included in this of like how you get your work, how you have your work visible, how you're able to get a part of the conversation. So this is the step kind of before this, which is okay, before you're going to even have a voice in that discussion, you probably want to make your work visible. So you want to market yourself. You want to start thinking less of a dev and more thinking about yourself as a brand, because a brand is not going to die. A brand is always going to carry forward no matter where you go. You know, you don't just buy any shoe. You buy typically a Nike shoe or whatever your brand may be, or your clothing. You don't buy usually a no-name brand of clothing. You're buying a certain brand because that is symbolic to who you want to be or your values, etc. So when you think about it yourself, you start thinking, well, how would it how would I be if I was essentially a company itself? So you start thinking about the brand, the strategy, what you want to put out. You want to market yourself because it portrays something, and not just in the company you're in now, but externally. So, let's say that you're looking to potentially move to another company, right? Or other opportunity. The nicest thing would be if you had, uh, you're the creator of NPM. Do you think you're going to struggle for finding a job? I don't think so. I think everyone will know who you are. Everyone will know your project. Everyone will know who you are given the talks you've done on your project. See how the perspective changes because that person's marketed their work. Whether or not they intended to market it, it's been marketed out to the masses. Now, they've done it through code, right? Um, Quality code that is used across many products. But even if it wasn't necessarily like the greatest quality of code, I've seen smaller scale projects that have done significantly well with traction, and they weren't the most elegant code, but people were driven towards that product because it solved a problem. And that's kind of what we want, right? So we want to market ourselves by solving problems that we have an expertise in and that we can find a spot. So you're probably sitting there like, how do we market our work? Okay, Corey, this sounds like what you're saying is it's an easy path to promotion, or it's going to cut down on the amount of interviews I'm going to have to do because I'm going to have something to basically showcase. Okay, I see some value in this. What, like, how are we going to do this? And the strategies are pretty much usually the same. Start doing lunch and learns on what you're doing in your company. If what you're doing in your company is not good enough to do some level of lunch and learn, then you're in the wrong job or you're doing the wrong projects. Now, there's a difference of I can't talk about what I'm doing because of blah, 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 versus I'm just doing X. And I think that's kind of a garbage excuse. I've been doing development for a long time and been in projects where it doesn't seem necessarily exciting if you put on your like pessimistic glasses and you're like, I'm doing legacy code. No one's interested in that. Like, it's just garbage, like Java code that was written 10 years ago. But it's how you put on your glasses. Like, if you put on the rosy glasses, it's like there's a lot of exciting things, like going from a legacy code base to a more modern code base. There's introducing, I don't know, Maven and Gradle on a project that doesn't use that at all, and how you broke inter-class dependencies and things like this. There's a lot of little pieces of content that can be basically pulled out. You're basically trying to become a content machine. Starting with internally to your company to level up your team for knowledge transfer. The broader context is leveling up your department or organization, the engineering department. It gives you a voice in discussion and it shows leadership. People are going to be attracted to coming to talk to you because of you're open. You're open for communication. If I never interacted with you, but you do a lunch and learn, that might be the first stepping spot where I reach out to you in the company and say, hey, have you ever looked at this? Have you thought about that? What did you do here? Creates a relationship. You're marketing yourself. And through that, you've created a relationship with someone else. Now, from there, you want to find a way of taking your internalized lunch and learns, we'll go with that, or internal blog posts or Confluence pages, whatever it may be, this content, and getting it approved to go outside. The reason why we want to do this is you leave the company, all that work you've done is under wraps. No one knows, no one cares, no one can see it. Doesn't matter how good it was. So typically what I did was I found a meetup that I would like to present to. I would do like a speaker request for a paper kind of thing, or I'd reach out to them and say, this is the talk I would like to do at your meetup. And they would get back and usually they would say yes. And then I would say, FYI, I just need some approval through my company to make sure the slides are fine. So I will have a yes or no for you by the end of the week or whatever, maybe in a week. And then I would basically copy and paste this over to my manager or director or VP, whoever it may be in this case for you. because it has a hard deadline. Hey, I've been invited to a meetup to speak on X date on Y topic that I've done on internal lunch and learn. Here are the public slides that I would like to present. I've redacted or removed all confidential information related to what we do internally. There's no IP, etc. And they will have some sort of process. The reason why I like these meetups is they have a fixed date. If you write a blog post or a Confluence page and you would like to pull that out of the company's going to be like, well, we should start a company blog. We need like an editorial process to that. It needs to go through 3 different departments. And because there's no hard deadline and no one's tied to those KPIs of getting like content out except maybe one person, it always takes way longer. Unless your company already has a very good structured content process to move content out from engineering, which they should because it's a great recruitment tool, then it's just going to take forever. It'll probably not even happen, or you're going to get one piece and that's it. So the approach of getting internal information out is through meetups is typically what I do. Now, you could also do it the other way, which is you start something external to your work. You do your meetups, you do a blog post, and then you internalize it. You take the same thing that you did publicly and then you present internally to the company. And then there's no approval process. So content is king. You find ways to pull this out. Lunch and learns and blogs are typically what I recommend for people. I think it's the easiest. And why do you really care? What are these examples? And like, oh, what are the results? I guess I should be saying is I did a meetup on something I had done at a prior employer about how we process civilian events. I did a public meetup. I got to meet some really interesting people. I got to interview at different companies because of that. I presented, they're like, hey, we're looking to hire. So I got to do interviews at those companies. And honestly, I eventually landed where I work today because of those slides. I used those slides as a foot in the door at a prior company, and I got to meet, someone who recognized what I was doing. And eventually in the future, they reached out and they were like, hey, I'm looking to hire. Would you come work? Doing exactly what you had presented before. And even the slides I was able to send the slides over during the interview process, and it was a starting discussion. Like in some of the interviews I did, they said, hey, why did you choose this? How did this work? You talked about this project you had done in blah, blah. Could we talk more about that? If you had to do it today, how would you do it? Just by marketing yourself, just by building out content. Even today, this is marketing and content. I want to build up a brand around things that I think are missing for developers in this space. And that's exactly what this is. So never sell yourself short. Never think you can't do it. You're already doing it. You're already marketing your work internally to a company. Just take it one step further and find out how to just have it public. And then it will be with you forever, and you'll be able to use this at any interview or anything you do, or just being able to share it with friends sometimes is a great advantage. So a long-winded answer is these are resources of where I would recommend to start. Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned is not some mushy book that you would think, oh, this is messy, but it is actually a YouTube video that got published into a book. And it is about machine learning and AI, actually, and how the researcher was trying to see if they could reproduce certain results like this using a machine learning model, and they just couldn't. Or it was very hard. The iterations were like enormous. Like it took the machine 100 billion times to get something like this. Basically, you started with different images and you would merge the images together. And through that, you would end up with something like this eventually through multiple iterations. But a human was actually very good at doing this. And what they found out is because to get to this butterfly, you don't necessarily start with the things that you think you would to get to a butterfly. And the machine would be like, oh, a frog and a cup will never get to this being merged. But a human, through curiosity, isn't necessarily looking for this. It was looking for combination of just like, well, that seems interesting. Let me try that. It was almost kind of a randomness until, 10 iterations in, the human would start to be like, oh, I think I see something here. I think I can get it to the butterfly. And then they would be able to progress there. A machine was very hard on doing this. So they have a YouTube video called Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. It's quite interesting from the mind. It just shows you that um, exploring and going down paths that you think would be unrelated to your field are actually really got some strong advantages too. Instead of you just focusing on code is all I care about, code is all I care about, code is everything to me. Not always the case. The next book is Deep Work, which I think, yes, I've recommended this in prior ones, by Cal Newport, and it is about focus and being able to get things done. It is a book that I honestly need to reread because I am bad with procrastination. So, the Power of Habit, I don't think I have it on this wall, but it just kind of goes well with Deep Work on how you get routines. Like, I knew this morning that if I was dead tired. I did not want to wake up. But if I didn't do this, I would break the routine, which would mean we'd probably stop coffee and dev. And then the Story Engine, which I think is down in my basement, is a book that is the most, I would call it like anti-developer book you'll probably ever read, because it talks about brand and strategy and how to build out content such as blog pieces. You read that book, it prepares you, or the perspective of that book is from being an entrepreneur and finding ways to market and sell your product. But just think of it as a developer. You want to find an audience, you want to be able to make content for an audience, and you want to be able to essentially sell back to some sort of audience. In your case, it might be an employer. In my case, it's you watching right now. I don't want to sell you anything, but I want to provide you the content. And that is it for Coffee and Dev today. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoy your coffee. I know I will. I definitely need it today. And until Monday, adios.